Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause here, and I had to actually pause and before making this video because I was laughing so hard. Three journalists leaving CNN after a retracted article. That's not what I'm laughing at. It's what Brian Stelter, who is dishonest as they get, I just, what he wrote. So this says three journalists, including the executive editor in charge of a new investigative unit, have resigned after the publication of a Russia-related article that was retracted. And now it seems like they're trying to throw these guys under the bus because they name them. It says Thomas Frank, who wrote the story in question, Eric Lichtblau, an editor in the unit, and Lex Harris, who oversaw the unit, have all left CNN. And I just think that it's funny that they call it an what do they call it? A new investigative unit. I mean, so CNN creates a new investigative unit, which, I mean, they're not very good at actually investigating things, let's be honest. So they're like, okay, we're gonna try this whole investigation thing. And everybody gets fired right away because they done goofed. It's like you can't write this. If you wrote a story, you wouldn't to write it this way would be too unbelievable. People wouldn't like it. But knowing it's the truth, it's actually reality. It's kind of funny. The other thing is there's no way I believe they were an actual investigative unit, and I'm sure you guys are pulling your hair out wanting me to say that, so I will. But hey, if they're going to market it like that. So then instead of going through that fuck's article, let's go through the wrap. It says that 3 CNN employees resign over retracted story on Russia ties. And let's see what their how they come at this. It says 3 CNN employees have handed in their resignations over a retracted story linking President Trump to Russia. The network announced Monday. By the way, I have seen CNN reporters. They're trying to... So they're going two ways. One way they're going is to say that, they fired all these people. And then another way is that they're going at this as that Trump, there's still basically that Russia actually was involved, and there are PolitiFact articles, and they'll cite other articles that show that Russia actually was involved in, and Hillary Clinton made this claim that 17 intelligence agencies have all determined that Russia was involved. But the thing is they are talking about, they're not talking about the collusion, so they're moving the goalpost. Basically they're saying any meddling that Russia did counts, and it's no, you guys were saying that Trump colluded. That's really all that matters. If Trump didn't collude, he can't be blamed that Russia got involved. If Russia got involved on their own, they've been trying to do that for decades, and they have been doing it for decades. It's really nothing new, and you can say it's ramped up or whatever, but no votes were changed. There were no consequences for it. I mean, basically they got into the registration system and then did nothing, as far as we've been told so far anyways. And that's if you even buy us from Russia, because keep in mind that the board of elections director in Illinois, who's the one who originally caught a lot of this stuff, he's the one that said that he doesn't even know, and still to this day hasn't been told by the FBI that it was Russia, because he said that the IP addresses were actually from the Netherlands, and that doesn't mean they were in the Netherlands, because you can do proxy IPs, but but there, there's that angle. So we're not even completely sure. Like, even the reduced level that of Trump or of Russia meddling, even that may be too much. So it says, in the aftermath of the retraction of a story published on CNN.com, CNN has accepted the resignation of the employees involved in the story's publication. A network spokesman told the Wrap in a statement. On Thursday, CNN investigative reporter Thomas Frank published a story involving an investigation into a Russian investment fund with possible ties on several Trump associates. According to the network, an internal investigation found that some standard editorial processes were not followed when the article was published. Citing a single unnamed source, the story reported that Congress was investigating a Russian investment fund with ties to Trump officials. This was like one of the, 10 pillars that they were the 10 different angles that they were going after Trump on, because it was Trump collusion, and it was Flynn's collusion, and it was Manafort collusion, and it was Lewandowski collusion, and there was, and then there was wrongdoing by Trump's family, and then there were all these, business ties that were to the state and or not. Sometimes they said to Russia, the Russian government, and sometimes they said to like Russians. Big difference, by the way. But I mean, there have been so many angles at this, and every one has pretty much failed. Oh, and the voting machines were hacked. That wasn't true either. The only thing that's had any staying power whatsoever is that there was the hacking of the registration. The DNC, which only appeared on the network site, which was quickly disputed on Friday as one Trump ally, Anthony Scaramucci, who was mentioned in the story, pushed back on Frank's reporting, insisting he did nothing wrong. Once it was determined that editorial processes were not followed. You expect me to believe this shit? Do you really believe that CNN has editorial processes for truth? I don't know about that. I guess they might have editorial processes to make sure that like the right narrative is being followed. It's certainly not to follow truth, to find the truth, though. CNN deleted the story from CNN.com. The network said Friday on its site. Soon thereafter, the story was officially retracted and replaced with an editor's note. You know what I love about this is something, it's kind of crazy that, a lot of us knew that CNN was fake news, and Trump said it was fake news and very fake news and all of that. But there's a big difference between us, like, knowing it and then there being, like, CNN actually has to come out and admit it. And that's what's happening. Like, CNN is now admitting it. Now, the New York Times did this a long time ago. Right after the elections, they're like, we're going to rededicate to the truth. And then they went back to bullshit. I'm guessing they were pressured into going back to bullshit. And now New York Times is going to be in a lot of trouble, and Washington Post is going to be in a really awkward spot because, like, they're all pushing the same stuff. So, MSNBC, all these, we see them as basically one entity. Because they're all pushing the same narrative. They're clearly all getting their information from the same places. The piece did not meet CNN's editorial standards and has been retracted. The note said, links to the story have been disabled. Yeah, don't want to keep that up, right? You can't fix that article, apparently. CNN blamed the mistake on a breakdown in editorial workflow. Then how do you explain all the other ones? Is every article a breakdown in editorial workflow? Explaining that these types of stories did not go through the usual departments such as fact checkers, journalism standards experts, and lawyers. Now, I think maybe the departments of lawyers, and more lawyers. The gaffe cost 3 employers their jobs. Frank, who wrote the story, Eric, a unit editor, and the person in charge of the unit, Lex, who I mentioned before, those 3 guys. The network's investigative unit was told during a meeting on Monday that the retraction did not necessarily mean the facts of the story were wrong, but rather the story wasn't solid enough to publish as is, according to CNN.com. Wait, the story wasn't solid enough to publish as is? Yeah, that fucking means wrong. Harris, Lickblow, and Frank had solid reputations among their colleagues. Frank worked as a reporter for USA Today and Newsday before joining CNN. Lickblow was a former New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter. No, you don't say. Someone from the Pulitzer Prize, that was a Pulitzer Prize winner, was disingenuous and got something wrong? No way. I'm shocked. Someone from the New York Times? No. The Pulitzer Prize isn't, it's not a political prize. It's not where you have to be on the right side of the narrative to win it, or that's ridiculous. It's not the New York Times. I mean, Congress uses that paper. I actually once saw where a congressman came in and he held up 2 papers. One was the New York Times and the other was the Washington Post. And he's like, basically saying, both papers are saying this, so it must be true. And I'm like, is this how Congress operates? They were obviously both left-leaning papers, and they're both bullshit. On Friday, CNN retracted a story published by my team. As executive editor of that team, I have resigned, Harris said in a statement. I've been with CNN since 2001, and am sure about one thing. This is a news organization that prizes accuracy and fairness above all else. I'm leaving, but will carry those principles wherever I go. This is about getting his next job, because now, if I had to make a prediction, I'd probably say, now he's going to go to, the Washington Post or something like that. So, because that's the Clinton model, is you build up your career on relationships, and then when somebody within your group, and then you do bullshit, and you prop up each other's bullshit, and then when someone within your group, takes the fall for everybody else, then somebody else within your group picks them up. Just think about how Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she was implanted as the DNC chair. She did a bunch of bullshit for Hillary Clinton. She got fired, right away hired by the Clinton campaign. That's how it works. So, that's that story. And then they have this other article that it says, Trump renews attack on fake news CNN after retracted Russia story. Just want to go over this real quick. It's not long, as you can see. So, President Donald Trump renewed his criticism of CNN as fake news on Tuesday, following the resignation of 3 network staffers for a retracted story that attempted to link the president's associates to Russia. Wow, CNN had to retract big story on Russia with 3 employees forced to resign, Trump tweeted. What about all the other phony stories they do? Fake news? Of course they're fake news. The president follows social media response with a retweet of a meme that rejiggered the news network's logo as FNN for fake news network. Well, remember, I think it was him that dubbed CNN the Clinton News Network, and that took off. President Trump has a great ability to create labels and have them stick like no other president we've seen. People still remember Lion Ted and Little Rubio. I think they were. Now I'll probably get those names wrong, but yeah, people still use. I still see the people using those terms. He followed by repeating unconfirmed reports of management changes that might be imminent at the network, and then broadened his criticism to include other mainstream media outlets because they have the same narrative. That's why. So they caught fake news CNN cold. But what about NBC, CBS, and ABC, he wrote? What about failing New York Times and Washington Post? They are all fake news, and it's so right. If they all have the same information, and CNN is admitting this is fake news stuff, then then what do you end up with? They all are claiming bullshit, and they likely all know it, but they simply don't care. It's all about the ratings. Wow, CNN had to retract big story. Oh, here's the actual tweet. And then there's this this is what, part of the meme war. And Donald Trump understands that there is a meme war and a culture war. And he understands that you put a meme, a lot of people don't have the ability to make a meme like this. You put this out there, pretty much anybody can, save this on their computer, upload it, and everybody's, reloading it. And you're going to see this everywhere now. And then he says, fake news CNN is looking at big management changes now that they got caught falsely pushing their phony Russian stories. Ratings way down. On Monday, CNN investigative reporter Thomas Frank and 2 other employees resigned over a retracted news report, which the network removed from its website on Friday after deciding it could no longer stand by its reporting. Keep in mind, there have been a lot of CNN heads that have rolled. There's these 3, but don't forget people like Donna Brazil, who was working with CNN. She was fired, and there were like 4 fired at around the same time she was fired. So CNN is going through a brain drain. Now, if Fox News went through a brain drain when O'Reilly and a bunch of other long-term people were caught up in that sexual assault scandal, or sexual harassment scandal, I should say, and a bunch of women left too, like Megyn Kelly and people like that. Well, they actually upgraded to a large extent. They're gonna take a little hit for it, but like Bill O'Reilly was the kind of guy where he was gonna get you ratings in the short term, but it was gonna cost you in the long term. Because he's that old style, cable news guy where he lies and everybody can see his lies, and he was putting out fake news out there just like the left cable media. And, now they're getting guys like Tucker Carlson has been able to rise to the top, and he's doing great work. And I actually think Fox News has really repaired their reputation. And it's really interesting to watch where they're actually a reasonable news source at this point. And I think people think that the mainstream media is going to go away eventually. I don't think it is. I think it's going to stay, and they're just going to they're going to rebrand, and after these people get kicked off, it'll be their opportunity to to bring in new faces and let those faces rise to the top and basically rebrand their entire company. Now, we'll see how far down CNN has to go before they hit this rebranding, but I mean, they've lost a lot of people, so. And by the way, Fox News, I mean, it really did hurt them when they lost Megyn Kelly. And because a lot of people saw Megyn Kelly as like the one shining star, that people saw her as more truthful than a lot of the others, like Bill O'Reilly. But now with her doing terribly at NBC, they're already looking to buy out her contract, and now there's some rumors that Fox News might bring her back on, and it would be a win-win because what other liberal media outlet is gonna want, or leftist media outlet is gonna want to bring her on after she failed so terribly at NBC? And Fox can bring her back on after she did so well there, and she would want to go back potentially because she did so well there, and it could be a match made in heaven. And it would just, NBC would have wasted a bunch of money, and they would have driven down her value, Megyn Kelly's value, and then Fox will be like, okay, we'll take the cheaper Megyn Kelly. And it's good. She'll be welcomed back with open arms, trust me. But it's about, the main sticking point is, would she want to go back? That's a big thing. On Thursday, Frank had published a story involving an investigation into a Russian investment fund with possible ties to several Trump associates. According to the network, an internal investigation found that some standard editorial processes were not followed when the article was published. So that's what they have to say. And also, I did a video on this Project Veritas video. This is where, they're admitting that their narrative was bullshit. And here's an article if you want to read that, but or just watch my video on it. So have a good one, guys. But man, this is, CNN is going through some problems, and the Washington Post, New York Times, those leftist media outlets, they're gonna have problems now too. And Trump was actually absolutely doing an intelligent and strategic move here when he put it on, he said, hey, don't forget about all these other outlets that were saying the same thing, especially the New York Times and the Washington Post. So have a good one, guys.